What's going on, guys? This is a little preview from my members only scrolling through IG. If you like this, check out my members only section. Thanks a lot for the support. Let's jump right in. We're going to check out Mr. Justin Shier, who has one of my favorite physiques in the IFBB. And I really miss hearing him on Foad's podcast. I loved him on there. He was so funny and they were so good together. So let's check it out. Now, before we even start, I'm looking at his feet. And they're kind of turned out, they're really domed. This is a very ER'd representation right here. And anytime you do a hinge from an ER'd representation, you're gonna put it on your back. So let's check it out. So a lot of low back tension. We're going down. I don't see a lot of pressure on the inner foot. I don't think we're rolling to the outside, but I don't think we're driving much internal rotation. We're getting some excessive lumbar round, and it gets a lot worse. I mean, this snapshot's not terrible here. This is essentially a back movement primarily with hamstring secondary. Not getting a ton of glutes, because whenever you push back, so first of all, he's kind of ER'd representation by having the feet out and the weight's not driving through those inner contact points. So we're gonna ER these innominate bones a little bit. Now, when we do that and we hinge, we're not able to go through internal rotation effectively, which is what a hinge is an IR bias movement. And so when we can't do that and we're here, we're just gonna start to tip and put it through our lumbar. It's when we go through IR and we internally rotate these iliums that we actually stretch and get a lot of glute activation. In this position, he's not lengthening the glute tissues really that much at all. If he was, he would be not shifting back so far and his pelvis would be going from counter nutation to nutation. I personally would not be super happy with these. Like that one's a pretty big hinge point. How do we look here? Like right here, that's like not what we want. Again, is this in isolation the worst thing? He's gonna hurt himself doing this? Well, I don't know, maybe he could, but this isn't like alarming to the point, but I would go off of blocks. If he wants to do a dead stop, I would bring this up just an inch or two, but in reality, he should bring it up like probably 5 inches and make this more IR biased if he really wants to get a lot of hamstrings and glutes. And he's had issues with his knees, and I don't think it's necessarily because of the way he trains his legs. A lot of times people think if you have an issue with a body part, then it's because of how you're training that specific body part. Oh, my knee hurts. It's because I'm squatting weird. But a lot of times you don't feel pain while you're doing something. You feel it later. And so sometimes it's not a specific movement like directly for your legs is messing up your knees. Sometimes it could be something like this that's throwing off your whole axial skeleton and making yourself so compressed and so ER'd. Now my femur can't really IR. Now I'm going to end up getting knee pain, but it's not from a squat. You might not even feel during the squat, but it's because I'm putting so much through my axial skeleton on other movements. Now here, Justin is leaving a lot of tension on the table by not using the thigh pad to produce counter force. So as you see him lift up the foot, look how the thighs kind of come up off the pad a little bit. What you need to do to really maximize tension on your quads is as you're lifting that leg up, you need to drive down the hamstring hard into that pad. So you want to produce a counter force going the opposite direction that you're moving the weight. And that'll make it so much harder. You'll get so much tension. And this is something that comes into play on every exercise. It's just a little bit more obvious and important on certain ones. So he definitely should be producing counter force as he's lifting up that foot. He should be pressing down his thighs into that pad at the same time. Anytime you lift up the legs, you're not really getting a lot of even like rectus femoris necessarily if you're not keeping your pelvis stable. Because when these legs come up, you just kind of like pull your pelvis under a little bit in the seat. That's just gonna take a little tension off. You see how he's kind of coming under a little bit there. But again, he needs to drive those thighs down. You get way better results with that. This is solid. Hard to mess up the adduction machine though. Okay, let's look at some T-bar rows. And this is another lost opportunity for counter force. Again, he's pulling off that pad like really low on his sternum. What you want to do anytime you're on your chest is you want to drive into the pad. You can still get extension if you want, but push yourself into that pad and this upper back. Arch if you want as you pull. That will make it so much harder. You'll get way more tension. If you're pulling off the pad as you're going, you're leaving a lot of gains on the table. You want to press into the pad. Again, if you don't want to extend, you don't have to, but you can press into the pad with the extension. You don't have to peel off. You want to produce counter force on this as well. So not producing counter force on the leg extension, and we're not really producing any counter force on this T-bar row. Really drive your chest through that pad as you pull. And like I said, you can extend with that if you want, but don't peel off from your sternum. So Justin gets a lot of compliments on his training style, but honestly, I don't think it's very good. I can see why he has issues. And again, he's just pulling off that pad so low. This is kind of what James was doing when I critiqued him, Holland's head in some of the other videos. Again, stay on that pad. And when he's reaching with his arms, he's kind of collapsing that sternum too. Like right here, he's kind of going a little too far. Where you see those shoulders roll forward, right there is too much. Too much. You're depressing that sternum. So you don't want to see a shape change in your sternum as those arms are going. Just stop here. Get a full stretch. Don't go to that position where you start to collapse this in. Because now you're just losing tension from your back. It's going onto your axial skeleton. And that's going to create some shape changes that you're going to have to deal with. And it's going to affect other movements. Look at this neutral grip pull down. Now these look pretty money. No complaints there at all. But I do think he's pretty overrated with his form. Just because you move controlled and heavyweight does not mean it's good form. And again, this is an angle where you can see he really just pulls from here. You don't need to extend from this part of your back. You're not doing anything for the musculature up here. All right, let's look at some chest pressing. And I would say too big a range of motion, no rib control, but he does get decent protraction coming out of the bottom. But I think he would get a lot better activation overall if he lowered his range of motion a little bit and pull those ribs down. You guys know if you control those ribs on like a low incline like this, you'll get way more activation. Now, if you're trying to do like a really higher incline and get the more distal fibers, that's the time where you will have more rib flare, more extension in your back. You still have some control, but some people think like I'm against any kind of retraction, any kind of extension in your back while you're pressing. It depends. It depends on what you want to hit. Overall, rib control is going to be much better for total development. But if you're on a high incline and you want to retract a little bit more, arch a little bit more, you can hit these distal fibers potentially a little bit better. But in general, control your fucking ribs. All right, how we look on this press. And again, I think we're just super extended. I actually would like the elbows to come under just a little bit. Not a huge deal, but I don't want to be so squeezed. I would control ribs more on this. And with this weight, again, nothing terrible. I would like to get a little lighter weight so I could push down and protract a little extra at the bottom. These flies are great. Yeah, hard to complain about these flies. I would just control those ribs a little more, bring those ribs down. That would actually help this a little bit. But yeah, I mean, even though I'm critiquing his training, obviously it can work. Justin looks phenomenal. He does have the knee issues and his legs are the weak body part. So I really hope that he has kind of fixed that up because I want to see this physique with a little bit more mass on it. And he's just got one of the craziest tapers and craziest like arm to waist ratios in the IFBB, I think. So I'm a big fan of his. Wish him nothing but the best.